Welcome to the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast, where timeless biblical truths meet modern leadership. We are thrilled to have you join us on this journey of exploring how biblical principles can guide us in leading with wisdom, integrity, and purpose. Whether you're leading in the church, your workplace, or your community, this podcast is designed to inspire, challenge, and equip you for the road ahead. Let's dive into today's conversation and discover how Scripture shapes the way we lead.
Welcome back to Biblical Perspectives for Leadership.
You know, it's amazing how we can find leadership lessons in the most unexpected places in the Bible.
Right. Like, who would have thought that walking on water could have something to do with leading a team?
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The story of Jesus walking on water, you can find that in Matthew 14, verses 22 through 33.
Sounds intriguing. So, what kind of leadership gold are we hoping to uncover together today?
This story goes beyond just a miracle. It's a powerful lesson in leading with faith and resilience, wouldn't you say?
I'm ready to hear more.
Okay, so picture this. Jesus sends his disciples ahead in a boat while he goes up a mountain to pray. Later, he joins them, but get this, he's walking on water during a storm.
Hold on a minute. We know from verse 23 that at least 3 of these disciples were experienced fishermen. We're not talking about amateurs here. And they were terrified by this storm.
Yeah, this wasn't just a little sprinkle. It must have been intense for even seasoned fishermen to be scared.
So what's the leadership lesson here? That storms are inevitable.
Exactly. Even the most experienced leaders, people like those fishermen, will face storms in their lives.
Right. These storms could be anything, project failure, conflict within a team, or even personal crises.
Exactly. But the point is, it's not about avoiding these storms completely.
It's about weathering them. Right. And this is where the idea of holding your position comes into play, something that's heavily emphasized in the source material. In fact, it specifically says, don't look at the conditions, hold your position.
Powerful words. It's all about choosing where we focus our attention, wouldn't you say?
So help me understand, what exactly is meant by condition and position here?
Well, the source defines condition as our current state of being, the circumstances we find ourselves in, good or bad.
Okay, so for instance, you're leading a team and a major project fails. The panic and pressure you feel, that's your condition.
Perfect example. And then there's position. This refers to something much bigger. It's about our standing with God, an unwavering trust in his presence and power.
So even when that project is failing miserably, our position is knowing that we're not alone.
Exactly. You have access to strength and wisdom that comes from God, which is greater than anything you face.
It's not about pretending the challenges don't exist.
No, it's about choosing where we anchor our minds.
Do we dwell on the crashing waves or hold on to our faith, knowing that ultimately we're safe in the boat with Jesus?
That's the key. And this is where things get interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
The source material compares our position to something we renew regularly, like licenses or insurance. It asks, do you need to renew your mind too?
That's a good point. Just like those documents expire, our mindset can become outdated. We need to actively renew it.
I agree. As leaders, growth requires us to constantly renew our minds.
We need to let go of old ways of thinking, limiting beliefs, anything that holds us back.
You got it. And one of the biggest obstacles to this renewal is getting stuck in the same condition.
You mean those times when you feel like you're just going through the motions, not making any real progress?
Exactly. And the source points out something crucial here. The things that keep us stuck are often distractions that appear right before a breakthrough.
Interesting. So these distractions aren't necessarily bad in themselves. It's the timing that can derail us.
You're getting it. The source lists common distractions that leaders face, like disbelief, meddling, jealousy, fear, hate, and even suffering.
Wow, those are some heavy hitters. I can see how they could easily throw us off course.
Let's say you're about to have a big leadership breakthrough, but doubt creeps in, or you get caught up in office politics, or you start comparing yourself to others. You've lost your momentum and focus.
Like landmines on the path to success.
You could say that, but I'm curious, what about those times when the distraction comes in the form of suffering, those unexpected trials and hardships that are completely out of our control?
It's a tough one. It's like when you're going through a really difficult time and the why me syndrome kicks in.
Exactly. You get so consumed by the pain and the questions that you lose sight of everything else.
It's like the clouds of suffering block out the sun, even though you know it's still there.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why the source encourages us to hold our position even in the midst of suffering.
So it's not about pretending the pain doesn't exist.
It's about anchoring ourselves in something greater than our circumstances, remembering that we're still God's children.
Loved and valued no matter what.
Exactly. And that's where our faith comes in. Remember, even the disciples who witnessed Jesus perform incredible miracles still struggled with doubt and fear when the storms hit.
Yeah, like in Mark chapter 4, verse 38, when they were caught in that fierce storm, they woke Jesus up, terrified, and said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?"
Even after seeing him calm a storm, they still doubted his presence and power when faced with a new challenge.
It's like we forget that God is with us in the valleys just as much as he's on the mountaintops.
It's human nature, but I think that's part of what makes this story so powerful.
It reminds us that even when we stumble and doubt, Jesus is right there with us, ready to help us back up.
Precisely. And that brings us to another fascinating part of this story. Peter's attempt to walk on water. He sees Jesus walking on water and, full of faith, asks to join him. And he actually does it for a while.
That's incredible. But then, of course, he gets distracted by the wind and the waves and starts to sink. It's so relatable, isn't it?
It is. How many times have we experienced a moment of breakthrough only to get sidetracked by fear or doubt? Peter was doing great as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus. But the moment he shifted his gaze to the storm, he started to sink.
So the key is to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus no matter what's happening around us.
Exactly. And that brings us to the most important leadership principle of all. Model the behavior you want to see in others. Jesus himself never looked at his conditions. He held his position throughout his ministry no matter what challenges he faced.
Even when he's feeding the 5,000, or facing temptation in the wilderness, or being rejected in his hometown, or enduring betrayal and crucifixion.
All of it. He never let the circumstances dictate his actions or his identity. He was always focused on his mission, on fulfilling his Father's will.
That's a powerful example. It's not about pretending that challenges don't exist. It's about choosing to focus on something greater, on the one who can calm the storms and enable us to walk on water.
Beautifully said. That leads us to another important question. What does it look like to hold our position as leaders when we face moments of doubt and fear?
That's a great question. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this discussion.
We have so much more to unpack. But for now, let these insights sink in. Think about your own leadership journey. Where are you facing storms? What conditions are threatening to take your focus off of Jesus? And what would it look like for you to hold your position, to lead with unwavering faith, even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty?
Those are powerful questions.
They are. And we'll pick up right where we left off in our next session. Until then, keep your eyes on Jesus and keep leading with faith.
As we were talking about those distractions before breakthroughs, something in the source material really stood out to me.
What's that?
It mentions that even positive things can become distractions if they pull our focus away from God.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
It specifically talks about a good-looking man or woman coming into your life after a long period of loneliness.
That's a good point. It challenges the idea that distractions are always bad.
Right. Sometimes it's the things that seem good or even desirable that can lead us astray.
Like the saying, all that glitters is not gold.
Exactly. So how do we tell the difference between a genuine blessing and a distraction disguised as something good?
That's where discernment comes in, a crucial skill for leaders. The source material emphasizes checking our motivations and making sure they align with our faith.
So it's not about judging things as good or bad, but more about whether they help or hinder our walk with God.
Exactly. And our calling as leaders, we need to ask ourselves, does this opportunity, relationship, or pursuit draw me closer to God and my purpose? Or is it pulling me away?
It's a constant check-in with our hearts.
Right. Asking, am I seeking God's will in this? Or am I chasing after something else?
I'm also curious about something else the source material mentions. It says that even after witnessing Jesus calm the storm, the disciples still struggled with doubt and fear later on.
Yeah, what about it?
It seems like even firsthand experience with God's power doesn't always erase our worries, does it?
It's so true, isn't it? It reminds us that faith is a journey, not a destination. We're going to have doubts. There will be times when we question God's plan.
Even after we've seen God work in amazing ways.
But I think that's just part of being human.
Our limited understanding trying to grasp something infinite.
We experience highs and lows, and our faith is constantly tested.
So holding our position isn't about never experiencing doubt or fear.
It's more about how we respond to those feelings.
Choosing to trust God's promises even when we don't feel it.
Yes. Remembering that our position in Christ isn't based on how well we're doing or if we have it all together.
It's based on His love and faithfulness.
Which never changes.
That takes the pressure off of us to be perfect.
It allows us to embrace the ups and downs.
Because, let's be real, no leader has it all figured out.
That's for sure. We're all learning and growing, making mistakes along the way.
And those mistakes are often our best teachers.
Absolutely. Even Jesus modeled this principle of holding his position throughout his ministry.
You mean like when he fed the 5,000? Or when he faced temptation in the wilderness?
Yes, and when he was rejected in his own hometown. Even during his betrayal and crucifixion.
Those weren't just small challenges.
No, they were some of the toughest imaginable.
But Jesus stayed focused on his mission.
He didn't let the conditions stop him from fulfilling God's will.
So as leaders, can we do the same?
Can we, like Jesus, maintain our focus and faith when surrounded by distractions and challenges?
Can we trust God's plan, even when we don't get it?
Can we remain steadfast in our purpose, knowing God is ultimately in control?
These are some tough questions to think about.
But you've hit the nail on the head. It's about what we choose to focus on.
The crashing waves. Or Jesus, the one who calms the storm.
And remember, Jesus doesn't just calm the storm. He walks on the water.
He shows us he's bigger than the storm.
That he's in control, even when it feels like everything is falling apart.
It gives us hope and encouragement.
No matter what we face, no matter how intense things get, we can hold our position knowing Jesus is with us.
Like that hymn. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness.
Right. It's not about our strength, but his.
So, to wrap this up, what's the one thing our listeners who are trying to lead with faith should remember?
Keep your eyes on Jesus, no matter what. Fix your gaze on the one who calmed the storm and walked on water. Trust his power, lean on his grace, and hold your position knowing he won't let you go.
That's beautiful, and a perfect way to transition into our final part. We've talked about the challenges of holding our position and the power of keeping our eyes on Jesus. Now, let's get practical. What steps can we take to cultivate that unwavering faith and apply these principles?
I like it.
Join us next time as we unpack those practical applications and discover how to truly walk on water in our leadership journeys. It's really striking how leadership and faith are so intertwined, especially as we've been talking about holding our position and keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus.
Yeah.
It's about trusting something bigger than ourselves, something that can calm the storms and even, enable us to walk on water, metaphorically speaking.
It's true, isn't it? Leadership at its core, it's not just about having the right skills or strategies.
It's about so much more.
It's about that deep, deep trust in God's guidance, his provision.
Trusting in his will for our lives.
Absolutely. Surrendering our own agendas and desires to his plan, letting him work through us.
So for our listeners out there, those who are really wrestling with this whole idea of leading with faith, what's the one thing you would want them to take away from all of this?
If I had to boil it all down to one sentence, I'd say keep your eyes on Jesus.
Simple and powerful.
No matter what storms you're facing, no matter how rough those waves get, you fix your gaze on him, the one who calmed the storm, the one who walked on water. Trust in his power, lean into his grace, hold your position. That unshakable knowledge that he will never let you go.
That's a beautiful thought. And a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
So for everyone listening, remember, even when you feel like you're going under, Jesus is right there with you, reaching out his hand.
He is.
Hold on to him, trust his promises, and never take your eyes off the one who can do so much more than we can ever imagine.
And with that, I want to leave you with one final thought. What condition in your life right now is trying to pull your focus away from Jesus? What would it look like for you to truly hold your position, to trust in him no matter what?
I encourage everyone listening to really sit with those questions this week. See where God might lead you.
You will.
And I'm so looking forward to our next deep dive together. Until then, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus and lead with faith.
Thank you for joining us on the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast. I hope today's insights have encouraged and equipped you to lead with faith, wisdom, and purpose. Remember, the greatest leader of all time taught us that true leadership is about serving others. If you enjoyed this episode and podcast, be sure to subscribe, share it with others, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people with these transformative truths. Until next time, keep leading with grace and walking in purpose.